Well, it was a game that had everything that is, except for the 4 points. Collingwood fell just short against the finals-bound Western Bulldogs on Friday night, but there was plenty to take away from the way the Magpies took it up to their more fancied opponents. Hello and welcome to The Agenda. I'm Rob Waters, and with me is the Herald Sun's Jay Clark, and no Chriso this week. Not sure what's happened to the great man, but we've lost him.
He's in Rio, and you've stepped up, and that was a very impressive start, I must say, Rob. So well done. Hey, I was really encouraged by the performance on Friday night. Disappointing to lose, I know. Bulldogs are a very good side. I think Collingwood led by 18 points in the third quarter. Even that last minute, Rob, you know, there were two inside 50s. Jesse White, 2 attempts to mark. Collingwood could very easily have pinched this one. So, look, I'm bullish about it, but the bigger picture is Collingwood is 4-4 since the bye. Had a tough draw, been pretty good, I reckon. But the next 2 weeks is Gold Coast and Hawthorn. Hawthorn's going to be tough, as we know. This week against Gold Coast, Rob, is very important. I don't think Nathan Buckley can afford to experiment or take it easy, throw around the magnets too much. I think they need a win. For this club at this stage of the development, Collingwood fans are not going to accept a soft performance or a loss against the Suns.
For at least some momentum heading into the pre-season next year, I think you're right. But the Suns will represent a pretty big challenge, and big being the operative word, with Lynch and 2 metre Peter, and they're good defenders, so they won't be easy.
Without Ben Reid, of course, you know, it is going to be a massive test for that Collingwood backline, as you say. Lynch, potential Coleman medalist. So it's going to be a big game, mate. Big game as usual.
Okay, that's the Gold Coast Suns, but there's plenty to ponder from Friday night. Adam Treloar's form, absolutely outstanding, and he really showed us what all the fuss was about and why they paid the heavy price that the Pies did.
Well, that'll be the big discussion point over coming into trade period, whether Adam Treloar was worth those 2 first-round draft picks. You look at this performance on Friday night, Rob, and I just thought he was absolutely stunning. You see that breakaway speed, that occasion there with that magnificent goal, head over the footy, turns and kicks, and it was just right throughout the whole night. He was the beacon for this Collingwood side, an absolute A-grade midfielder, and he's only 23, Rob. So the prime of an AFL footballer's career is usually 24 to 29. And you would think on this evidence on Friday night, he's got a very bright 4 or 5 seasons ahead of him, and he kept going. So in that fourth quarter, when the game was on the line, he had 11 possessions, mate, 4 contested possessions, 2 tackles. He was absolutely outstanding. And you think of a young Chris Judd, Patrick Dangerfield, you know, could he get to those heights? You think, is that a really big call? Or
it's a big call, but he is an elite talent, an A-grade player already. We know about his work ethic and his desire. He's a bit of a footy nut, as I understand it. But what I liked about it in particular was that with the captain a bit hurt, he took over. Side bottom held in the second half. He became the man. He became the man.
Yeah, and it's his 100th AFL game this week against Gold Coast. So I think it's probably time to just stop and reflect on what a great young talent this is. Even Nathan Buckley, the coach of the Pies, obviously, at the weekend said, yes, there's a few pot shots flying around at the footy club at the moment, but Adam Treloar's not one who deserves one. And he could very well take out the Copeland this year. You'd think certainty to be the top 2 was great on Friday night.
Okay, outstanding. So that's Adam Treloar. Darcy Moore just continues to bring it. Is this his forward line now?
I think it is. He is the star of the forward line show. Maybe a slowish start to the season. He wasn't on his own for Collingwood, but geez, he's been very encouraging the past 2 weeks. Nearly got knocked out here, Rob, by the fence. Geez, he smashed into that hard. Cut his head. He's wearing a massive black eye around the club today. But I just thought some of his marking, his athleticism, as you see there, he's got a beautiful set shot, kicking technique for a guy in his second year, nominated for the Rising Star. The shepherd there was very important for Oxley to take that mark. It was very smart. I just thought he was absolutely outstanding. And as a Collingwood man yourself, Rob, you must be pretty excited about his future.
Well, I am, and he's exciting to watch too. So he'll bring fans through the gate. But when he gets a leap at it, very few can go with him. And it leads to a discussion, a more broader discussion, I think, about what the Pies do moving forward with their forward line. They looked as if they went a bit smaller on the weekend, and it seemed to work. Yeah,
definitely at Etihad. You know, we've shown with Hawthorn in particular, with Bruce, Puopolo, Rioli, forward lines are getting smaller these days, and so if he's going to be the star of the show next year, they get Elliott back, they get Fasolo back, De Go is developing nicely, maybe Varco plays forward. We saw Oxley at the weekend, so there's some more mobile options to operate around more. So I think That's pretty exciting. We bang on about Jesse Hogan and Joe Danaher and Tom Boyd. Oh, do you reckon Moore's gone under the radar? Like maybe you see the equivalent of Jesse Hogan. Like I'm starting to think on this. Hogan hasn't kicked a goal in the past month. I'm just thinking whether we give, those two might be a bit closer than we think. Is that fair, do you reckon?
That is fair. Darcy's starting to rip games apart, and that half he played a couple of weeks ago was just outstanding against the West Coast Eagles, and he's backing it up now. I think he's right in the discussion when you're thinking about the best young key forwards in the game.
Yeah, well, I think he's got Boyd covered. We talk a lot about Tom Boyd. I think he's ahead of Tom Boyd in his development, but it's probably not something we bang on about Hogan a lot. I just wonder whether Darcy gets enough credit.
Certainly got Boyd covered in value for money, I would have thought, just at the moment.
You said that, not me, Rob.
That's another story. And Darcy had a few mates out there from his Oakley Chargers days.
So it's Phillips and De Goey and Moore all played for Oakley. So you think as a forward-line operation, these guys are all tight and very good mates. That they've got good understanding there with each other. It's a tight friendship, and we saw on Friday night a couple of times, these guys really got round each other and connected on the field. And I think Benny Crocker is an Oakley boy.
He is, yep.
As well. So I just think that having that tightness, that camaraderie, that understanding when you're looking at these guys and, being real key posts of this Collingwood forward line for the next 10 years, I think that helps. And to go his tackles there on Liam Picken, who's one of the hardest men in the AFL, he's quite tough, isn't he?
He is a tough man, and he's a very skillful man. Darcy Moore, both in the air and on the ground. It was a good moment for Tom Phillips there, who had a bad one previously in the game when he turned it over when he shouldn't have. But he's a promising type, and it looks a pretty astute selection.
With that left foot, that kicking skill is probably something that Collingwood going forward really needs to refine. I think even on Friday night there were a couple of opportunities going inside 50, where a couple of clangers probably really cost them some momentum. So Tommy Phillips is one, I think, who can use the footy pretty well, and Nathan Buckley be pretty excited by his potential.
Lots been made of Scott Pendlebury's skill and poise and elegance almost as a footballer in AFL levels. Rarely talked about is Pendlebury's toughness. Just for him to get up and play with his injury issues of a week ago was an outstanding effort, and his match was all about leadership.
Underrated. Mick McGuan said earlier in the year, I'm not going to get over this, that should he question whether Scott Pendlebury should be the captain of Collingwood. Quite extraordinary. I wonder whether this man should be captain of this year's All-Australian team. Joel Selwood, Callum Ward, his year has been just as good. In fact, I think it's been underrated. This week, as you said, so he had the ankle injury last week, Rob, and we talked about it last Monday. I thought he was 100-1 to getting up. That's longer than Prince of Penzance odds in last year's Melbourne Cup. Extraordinary recovery, and he played well. So he just gets up from these injuries, and a few of his stats. He didn't have a massive night, but 6 disposals at 100% in the last quarter. Uses the ball so well. 74 disposals for the night. 4 clearances, 7 tackles on one leg. Like, I reckon 95% of AFL players probably wouldn't get up from that bad ankle sprain, and he did.
Sends a great message to his young teammates too. Yeah. This is what you've got to do to be an elite AFL footballer, which of course we know he is. But
just before we leave that, who do you think All-Australian captain? Who stands out for you? I mean, probably Callum Ward would be in there. Joel Selwood would be in there. I guess Pendle's year, I think, is neck and neck with Selwood. I think that's been
All-Australian captaincy can be a bit of a raffle at times.
Bob Murphy last year.
Bob deserved it last year and got into the side, but Pendlebury would have to be in the mix, in the equation, certainly.
If he's not in the All-Australian team,
what will you do? You'll self-combust.
I'll be very surprised. We made that point clear.
Jeremy Howe, a very interesting player, but a good pickup for Collingwood, and it's certainly been very comfortable as that intercept marking player down in defence. And again, he was great the other night. You've got a bit of a theory about maybe looking into the future. He's the man to go forward.
Well, he came to Collingwood as a forward and said basically it was on a promise that he could play forward. That's where he wanted to play his football. But he's been outstanding in defence, hasn't he, Rob? Like, I think he's genuine top 5 best and fairest material. He's kicking here. You see his kick. We know a lot about his aerial ability, but he's kicking. He takes the kick-ins for the Pies. It is underrated. He's aggressive and he takes the game on. I just wonder going forward, we talked about that small ball forward line before thought whether he can become the big second banana. So if it's not White or Cloak, whether he can become, that's an unbelievable mark. Can he do that in the forward half, or do you think he's better off just playing his best footy where he has this year in defence? Can he be that swing man?
I understand the theory of what you're saying there.
But you think it's rubbish?
Yeah,
you can say it.
No, I think there's merit to it, but he just looks more comfortable to me running at the ball coming to him in defence.
Yep.
It's hard to explain.
Intercepts.
Why some players are like that, but I put him in that category, and I think he's very valuable there with his kicking and the intercept marking with Ben Reid. I think that's a pretty powerful weapon for the Pies.
Scharenberg potentially comes back next year. Williams, Ramsey, a couple of magnets come back into that back half. Just wondered, as good as he's played this year, whether Nathan Buckley and the coaching staff, when they're talking about scoring more next year, getting to 100 points a game, where they look at swinging maybe Reid and Howe forward more offensively. But it's one for Bucks and the coaching staff over summer.
Nice to have the option, isn't it?
Yeah. He's been through the trade. I mean, Ben Kennedy went out and Howe came in, and you'd have to mark that as a tick for Collingwood, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. Trade. And the other thing about Howe is he played on stringer. He played on a damn good player.
Very good point.
And, kept him pretty much under wraps for most of the night. That's one part of the half-back line. Tyson Goldsack's return was another, and I think he's a real favourite with Pies fans. Yep. And, he threw himself around the other night, didn't he?
He was just so tough and courageous. So I'm not sure what the 1%ers count is, but Tyson Goldsack surely led that on Friday night. A great diving tackle there, saved the goal against Clay Smith. Now look at this sort of stuff. That is where Angels fear to tread, Rob. When you go back with a flight, no idea who's coming. Big 110 kilo forward, Tom Boyd coming straight at you. Ball use, very good. He's a smart and possibly underrated player.
Look at that. Backing back to fill the hole.
I'd hear footsteps, Rob, I'd be honest.
Yeah, I'd be going the other way, I would have thought.
But there on Picken, he would be so sore, don't you think, after Friday night?
Well, I'm sore looking at it, so I can't imagine how he feels. But again, he's a good mark, an adaptable player, can play on a variety of forwards. And he was stiff to get dropped a month ago, wasn't he, Tyson?
Yeah.
But he went back. He went back, did his penance, played really well in the VFL, and let's hope he finishes the season off nice and strongly.
I think Collingwood have missed him, and as you said, can play back and forward. He's the man who can. I think Nathan Buckley tries to get him back as a regular of the senior side as he can. When he does that sort of stuff, brilliant.
One of his teammates was young Maynard. Yep. Another great game from him. He's just steadily getting the cut of this jib of this AFL caper, isn't he?
I like him. I think earlier in the year I said he reminded me a bit of Luke Hodge. I got a little bit of Twitter feedback about that comment.
Luke Hodge.
I must be honest, but he's just got that toughness and can show that poise and composure at times, sort of that ball use out of the back half, Rob. So, look, I really like him, and he spoke to Collingwood media after the game about Friday night's performance.
Yeah, it was definitely better than last week. Last week was horrific. The effort wasn't there. But this week, like I said, we came out with an intent, a purpose, and the boys got around each other. We're doing everything right. But yeah, like I said, from last week, it's a step up, but we need to keep that consistent. Goldie showed a great amount of courage tonight. He got around the boys got around him. He was very good with structure, communication, so to have a senior player come back into the side was something that the boys needed, and I thought he played his role tonight and did really well. I don't like to think my spot in the team is cemented. I feel like you always got to earn the respect and right to play every week, so I don't think my spot is cemented, but to be playing consistent footy and to be getting a game every week is something that I made a goal and set out to be, and to achieve that is, pretty impressive.
You see that left foot kicking out of that back half with Bruzzy Maynard. I think it's really encouraging. And the way he spoke then, just lot to like about him. I think he's a real cool head most of the time, and a player who I think for the next 10 years at Collingwood can be a very solid cog down the back half. Now, we've got him as as the Monday moment, Rob. Now, I want you to have a look at this piece of play. Now, this is a guy who wants the ball in his hands at an absolutely crucial moment. So we talked about he's working the back half. Intercept mark, Bruzzy Maynard. Where's the ball gone? Regathers on the left foot through the big sticks. Robbie, how do you like that? Look at that. That brings scores to Tide. Absolutely crucial moment again. Look at the intercept mark, backs himself. Oh, where's the footy gone? No, I've still got it. 3 steps, goal on the left, gets smashed. Now, for an absolute kid in his first couple of years, I think that is a massive feather in his cap, Rob. You think I'm getting a bit excited.
Well, well done on the audition to replace Dennis Cometti at Channel 7 when Denny hangs up the earphones next year. Hey?
What do you think, mate? What's your Monday moment?
Well, mine's James Aish. He's an evolving story, I think, for the Magpies. And again, he improved on his output. 6 weeks ago, there was probably a few worries about James's form. But this is the sort of stuff that we've come to see from him now. Look at this. Good pickup, very clean hands. And you can almost see him thinking his next move, which is a beautifully weighted kick, which Darcy Moore marks. So I think James Aish is showing why Collingwood went to so much trouble to get him into the club.
Yep.
He effectively comes into the club in place of young Freeman, who went to St Kilda, and it's looking a pretty good bit of business. And he looks a long-term midfield player for the Magpies, which is very encouraging. I reckon.
Went back to the VFL and just sort of built some confidence, played his role in the best and fairest. He'd be coming hard. His second half, he'd be racking up some votes. So I don't think he's top 10 material, but really improved. So
how good do you think he can be?
Oh, can he be an elite midfielder? His courage in the air and his toughness and bravery has been something that's really impressed me. I think if he can just tidy up his ball use a little bit, I think possibly that can be the area that can take him to be an elite midfielder. Like he led the Pies.
He kicks it pretty well.
Yeah, pretty well. Earlier in the season, I wasn't quite sure about that part of his game. His metres gained on Friday night was excellent.
Yeah.
But I think off
the charts.
Yeah, very, very, very encouraging. In fact, it proved me wrong, to be honest. So I got to put my hand up.
Okay.
Yeah.
You do that a bit.
Well, it's just, as you sort of said, that first half of the year, you're sort of wondering how that trade was looking and whether he could, like he won the Rising Star, and you just wondered whether he could take that next step. And it's a credit to the players around him, the faith the club has shown, and the coaching staff to back him in, because he was probably not feeling too flash 3 months into the season. Credit to him. He's played very well in the second half of the year.
Yeah, good bit of management all round, I would have thought. So that just about wraps it up. 2 rounds to go. Hawthorn in the last round, and the Gold Coast Suns to come this week. It's pretty important, as we said, that the Pies finish off well.
Absolutely. There are no soft performances on Saturday night. Bucks has got to get the boys up, the leaders as well, because that topsy-turvy, on and off, up and down sort of effort, just can't be tolerated. 5-5. Since the bye, with a tough draw, I think it'd be a pretty good finish to the season. Builds a platform for next year, Rob. So,
good to have a chat, mate.
Mate, you've very impressive effort.
Oh, thanks very much.
Well done.
Chris O will, though, be back next week. Join us then on The Agenda.